Good evening. Let's get out our Bibles and turn to Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 11. That's where we're going to be studying from. Ecclesiastes is a book that is really trying to help us to live the best life that we can possibly live. As we've been studying through this book, I hope that you've learned a few things, and hope that it's helped you to just change your mindset and the way you think about life in general. Because really, that's I think what Solomon's goal is as he's teaching and writing this book. He's experienced a lot of things in life, and he wants to share what he's experienced. He wants to share the wisdom that he has with us, so that we don't waste our time on earth doing the things that are of no value. And as we come into chapter 11, near the end of this book, really, we're going to make this the last section because I feel like this is kind of the conclusion. He's going to go back over some of the things that he's already stated, and he's going to kind of wrap everything up with an understanding of what we need to do. How do we need to live our lives in order to make sure that it's the best life that we could possibly live? So as we open up chapter 11, we're gonna learn in a few sections three things that he really wants us to invest in, investing ourselves in this life to make sure that it's the best. And then he's going to tell us why we need to spend our time investing in these things before our lives are over. Let's start reading the first two verses in Ecclesiastes 11. It says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on earth." As you read this, you might be a little bit confused. This first statement, especially, cast your bread upon the waters. Maybe you've heard that stated a few times. I think I mentioned it earlier in our studies of Ecclesiastes, but it's clarified as you go into the second verse. Give a portion to 7 or even to 8. What he's talking about in this text specifically is to invest in relationships, to give to people, to share with people, and to rely on each other in order to survive. As he says, cast your bread upon the waters, we might think, well, that's ridiculous. Why would I throw bread on the water? All that's going to do is become soggy bread. How's that going to help me in life to have my bread that I've worked for, that I've made, cast upon the waters? I'm losing bread. I would be much better off to store that bread in my own cupboards and to keep it for as long as I possibly can. But he's making the point that as you are given a surplus of bread, to not hoard it up to yourself where it's just going to mold and mildew and ruin, but to share it with other people. Cast it upon the waters, he says, for you will find it after many days. You will receive back what it is that you have shared, that you have cast out, that you thought would just might as well be used. So here, y'all take it, and you'd never get it back. You'll find that it comes back to you. And so what he says, as it's clarified in verse 2, give away your stuff to others. Share a portion with 7 or even to 8. Don't live selfishly. Don't hoard up your riches. Don't live in isolation. That is a bad investment in your life. But instead, he's trying to encourage us, share the plentiful that God is giving you, and invest in other people. And notice at the end he says, for you know not what disaster may happen on earth. When bad things happen to good people, as Solomon has said earlier in this book, does happen. Bad things do happen that we never foresee. Job is this wonderful example of that. There is a need for friends who have escaped the destruction, who you have helped in their time of need, to come now and help you in your time of need. And so he says, invest in relationships. Share with others as you experience plenty. Don't think, I've got to hoard it all up and make sure I've got enough for my day of destruction. No, the day of destruction can ruin all that you've hoarded up for yourself. And if you've not been generous in helping other people, then why would they be generous in helping you in your time of great need? And so Solomon's first piece of advice for living life and enjoying it is to share what you have with those around you. Invest in relationships. Invest your money, your time, your efforts in relationships with other people, because we're stronger together than we are in isolation. How important is this message for us today? I mean, our tendencies are just to try to take care of number one and take care of ourselves, and we don't really think about other people as much. We think they can take care of themselves. Well, it's interesting that whenever destruction does come, we all help each other out. But we should be constantly thinking about that. In times of plentiful, who could I help? How could I lift other people up? And we'll talk a little bit more about this and how it relates to us at the end. But what a wonderful idea this is. You continue, you learn that there's another investment that he wants us to make. And this one's a little bit more difficult to interpret, so read it carefully with me. Verses 3 through 6. It says, if the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will lie. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the way of the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. In the morning sow your seed, and at evening withhold not your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. Well, what is this all about? There's a lot of different pictures throughout this text, and I'll say at the beginning what it is. It's about investing in time, to make use of your time on the earth. The first two things that he mentions are things that are obvious. The clouds look like they're full of rain. Well, it's going to rain. If a tree falls down, it's going to stay there. I mean, that's the way trees are. They don't move. They're just going to be what they are. But then he points to things that are not so obvious. He talks about the wind. You know, oh, it looks like it might be windy today. Well, is it going to stay windy? We don't know. Really, the theme throughout this is we really don't know what's going to happen in the future. We really have no idea how things are going to unfold. He says this image, like we don't know how the Spirit, remember that's the word breath. We don't know how the Spirit comes into the bones of a baby inside a mother's womb, so we don't know the work of God who makes everything. We don't know what God is going to do and how God is going to bring things about. And so he says some things are just obvious, but some things we have to recognize we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and that these things are all in the hands of God. So what does he say to do? Sow your seed in the morning and in the evening. Sow your seed at all times. Don't withhold your seed and hoard it up and try to prevent losing it. You imagine the wind comes and blows all your seed to where it's all blown away in the wind and over to your neighbor's field or something like that. You know, don't worry about that. Don't worry about the colossal downpour that's going to kill your crops. You know, if it looks like it's about to rain and you're scared of the storm, just if it's not storming yet, go out there. Essentially, what he says is, stop procrastinating and sow the seed. Stop worrying about what might happen in the future and do the things that you know need to be done as soon as you have that opportunity. Go while you see that you can, and don't use potential disasters as an excuse. Are you one who tends to catastrophize? Do you tend to think negative thoughts? You know, I was thinking about cutting that grass, but that rain looks like it's coming. Might want to just stay inside and watch some TV. You ever said that? Said it quite a few times. Yeah, I really need to get to work on that project, but I'm just scared I won't have enough time to finish. And so I might as well not even start if I'm not going to be able to finish it. I like to get things done. I like to leave my tools out. You know, we just put things off. We make all these excuses and reasons why we can't do things. And Solomon's saying, no. You don't know what's going to happen and whether or not you'll be able to do those things. Do the things that you can do while you can, because you might lose the opportunity to do them at all. Before you know it, the time for sowing is ended. Before you know it, the time for reaping has ended. And it may be that you lose your crops or you're not able to reap as much as you would have been able to reap. He's saying just go and do the thing that you know you need to do and stop acting like something bad's going to happen and just do it. And if it happens, it happens. But one way or another, you're going to reap more than you would if you just sit around waiting for bad things to happen. We need to overcome those negative thoughts and just invest our time in the things that we have to do in life. And this can have large implications for our spiritual life as well. We'll talk about that at the end. So Solomon gives us wisdom. First of all, invest in relationships. Make sure that you build one another up, that you share with each other. And then second of all, he says, make sure you use your time wisely. Make sure you're using the time that you have and you're not just wasting it away. Invest your time. Invest in the things that you're here for, the work that you're here to do. And then thirdly, as you go into verse 7, he says, invest in joy. Let's read that. Verse 7, light is sweet, and it is pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. So if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in them all. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. Remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body, for youth and the dawn of life are vanity. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth. As we read through this, we read some very encouraging words for those of us who are young. And maybe some words that are pretty discouraging to us if we were older and we didn't really take advantage of our youthfulness at the time. But as you read this, you're encouraged to just be more positive and be real careful about being so negative about the bad things that are happening in your life, or about the lack of good things that you really want to happen, and you're coveting after all this success and all this happiness that other people you see have. Beware of that, he says. Be careful about that, because it's going to go away. All the good things that you have right now that you could be enjoying, but that you're just ruining by being negative, those things will all go away. As I was studying this and distracting myself from my work through my Facebook app, which happens more often than I like to admit. But as I was distracting myself, a video came up, and this guy was asking a question. I was like, I'm studying. This is perfectly in line with my lesson. So I was listening to this guy, and he's asking these people, what if I gave you $1 million right now? Would you be pretty happy? Like, yeah, absolutely. I'd be pretty happy. It's like, would you wake up tomorrow and would you still be happy? Yeah, I'd still be pretty happy tomorrow. Would very many things make you upset if you knew that you were getting that $1 million? They were like, it'd take a lot for me to be upset if my bank account was now deposited $1 million. I'd wake up pretty happy. And the guy said, well, what if you could have your $1 million today, but you wouldn't wake up tomorrow? Would you take the $1 million? And they said, no way. And then he asked this question, isn't waking up worth more to you than gold and money? And yet, you wake up in the morning and you're not excited and happy, and you let little things get you down. I was like, man, that's exactly what Solomon is trying to say. You're blessed to wake up this morning. The light is shining. Why are you upset? Why are you so distraught and discouraged? You got so many blessings in your life. It's something to be excited about. It's something to be rejoicing about. It's something to enjoy that you have another day of life. Melvin has mentioned this in our Bible class. He wakes up and he's just like, I'm so happy to still be here. And that's right. We should all feel that way. And if you're young, you should feel especially blessed and excited that you still have the youthful vigor that those who get older are missing and wishing they still had. Our children run around like crazy, never get tired unless we make them run or make them work or do something like that. All of a sudden, they're exhausted immediately. But that's the way it is. You have all this movement and excitement and joy, and he says that's what you should be doing. Enjoying the blessings that God gives you. Live the best life you can in your youth. because those days don't last forever. There are dark days ahead when it's not going to be as fun and as enjoyable as it is right now. But he says, walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes, but know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. It's not this free pass. Live your life to the fullest. Carpe diem. Seize the day. It's not this free pass to just do whatever you want to do. It's this understanding that God has blessed you with joy in life, and He wants you to be grateful to Him for all the joy, and He wants you to enjoy the joyful things that life has given you, and not be all somber and bitter whenever you're being blessed. He wants you to enjoy it. But remember, in all your joy, the one who gave it to you. Remember the one who created you. As you're using the blessings that He has given you, remember that He is the one who gave them to you, and be sure to do the things that He would want you to do with those blessings. In chapter 12, verse 1, it says, remember also your Creator in the days of your youth. In verse 13, he says, the end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. The conclusion of the book is, rejoice in the wonderful things God has given you while you have them, but remember that God is going to bring you into judgment, and that you're not here to just do what you want to do, but you're here to serve Him and do the things that He's commanded you to do. And that's wonderful words of wisdom from Solomon. And in all of this, he tells us the reason why I want you to invest in relationships with other people, the reason why I want you to invest in yourself and your time and devote your time to doing the things that you know you need to do, not waste your time. The reason why I want you to invest in joy is because one day it's going to happen that all these things are going to go away. All of these blessings that you're enjoying in life right now, in whatever stage of life you're in, will start to slip away. And life will not be as easy as it once was. Let's read starting in chapter 12, verse 1. He says, remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come, and the years draw near, of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened, and the clouds return after the rain. In the day when the keepers of the house tremble, and the strong men are bent, and the grinders cease because they're few, and those who look through the windows are dimmed, and the doors on the street are shut, when the sound of the grinding is low, and one rises up at the sound of a bird, and all the daughters of song are brought low, they are afraid also of what is high, and terrors are in the way. The almond tree blossoms, the grasshopper drags itself along, and desire fails, because man is going to his eternal home, and the mourners go about in the streets. Before the silver cord is snapped, and the golden bowl is broken, and the pitcher is shattered at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, all is vanity. These words from Solomon are the reason why you should enjoy the things that you have, the time that you have on earth while it lasts, and you should make the most of your time, and you should have relationships with people, because one day all of this that you're enjoying will cease and life will become difficult. And if we've lived long enough and we've had relationships, we know people around us that we love, their bodies give out. And our bodies too will give out. We won't be able to do all the things that we've once done. We'll be scared of things that we never thought that we would be scared of. We never really paid much attention to. He uses all this figurative language whenever he talks about this. He talks about the keepers of the house tremble, probably referring to the hands and the arms as we get older. He says the strong men are bent, which is probably referring to the legs bending with time, or not being able to walk correctly. The grinders cease because they're few. The teeth falling out. Those who look through windows are dim, not being able to see as well. The doors in the street are shut. Could be business is no longer operational. It could be talking about not being able to hear, as he says, when the sound of the grinding is low, not being able to hear. When one rises at the sound of a bird, can't help but wake up at the very beginning of the morning. And then it says, all the daughters of song are brought low. Again, the joy of music. They are afraid also of what is high, and terrors are in the way. Have a hard time dealing with the fear of falling and breaking some bone or being bedridden. The almond tree blossoms, the gray hair. The grasshopper drags itself along. Can you imagine a grasshopper who can't jump anymore? All they can do is walk. If you've ever seen a grasshopper walk, it's dreadfully slow. He says, desire fails because man goes to his eternal home. And then he gives pictures. The silver cord is snapped. The bowl is broken. Water is poured out. The well is no longer providing any water. It's all dried up. Your life is over. You're going to die. The dark days are coming. So he says you need to make sure you make the most of the days of light that God gives you on the earth. That's a really, really important lesson that I hope that we learn from this book, and that we walk out of here having an appreciation for every day of life that God has blessed us with. All of this wisdom from Solomon is wonderful. It's great advice for us to follow. But as we read through all of these words, we see in verse 11, he says, the words of the wise are like goads. They urge us on like a goad urging on a bull or a calf. They're like nails firmly fixed, so they're not moving. They are where they are, and it's the truth, and no one can change them. And it says they're given by one shepherd, and beware of anything going beyond these, of making many books, there's no end, and of much study is a weariness to the flesh. He says, all of this is great advice, and this is the truth, and this is what I've observed that God has revealed to me, that life under the sun is all about. It's vanity of vanities. It will always result in the end. And if anybody's trying to sell you something that's going to give you the solution to all life's problems, they're wrong. What God has made crooked, we cannot straighten. But here's the way to live the best life you can possibly live. And that's great advice. All of this is just wonderful advice for us to have the right perspective. But remember, Solomon was writing before the full revelation of God was made. And whenever we come into the New Testament, all this wisdom and knowledge and understanding that Solomon gives to us, Jesus adds to it another dimension. Because we see that of all the relationships that we can invest in, the greatest relationship we can invest in is God. And whenever Jesus comes onto the scene, he doesn't tell us, invest in friends who are at the same socioeconomic status as you so that they can save you from your trouble. He says, invest in those who are poor. Because God sees your love for people who will never be able to repay you. And he will reward you with an eternal blessing. That's the way that Jesus talks about relationship investment. Invest in God. Don't invest in other people and just, love other people and share with other people so that you can get something out of it. Invest in people knowing you won't get anything out of it except whatever God gives you, and you believe and have faith that he's going to provide that for you. Jesus says the greatest investment of our time is spent sowing spiritual seed. And much like Solomon, who tells us to sow the seed in the morning and in the evening, whenever it looks like it's going to be windy or rainy or whatever, just sow that seed. Jesus also tells us to sow that spiritual seed. And we don't know what's going to happen with it. We don't know what God's going to do with it, how God's going to provide the increase. But we just know we're here to sow and to water that seed. And God's going to take care of the rest. When we come into the New Testament, we learn that our greatest joy is not in the things of this life, even though they are wonderful. We are extremely blessed with life, and we should see life that way, that it is a blessing to have the light of day and the ability to walk around and move and to have any youthful vigor in us whatsoever and any independence and ability to support ourselves, there is a greater joy than anything that we enjoy in this life. And that is the joy we have in knowing that we have a relationship with God that goes beyond this life, that goes into eternity. And along with it, spiritual blessings that are beyond anything that we would ever deserve in our lives. And that's ultimately what we are called to do, is to rejoice. I love Philippians, where Paul says this repeatedly at the end of Philippians. In Philippians chapter 4, starting in verse 4, he says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I will say, rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. Paul says, rejoice always in the Lord, because you have reason to be thankful for what God has done for you and what God has revealed to you. You don't have to live your life depressed like Solomon, wondering what's going to happen when all this life is over. God has revealed to us his many great promises and blessings that he wants to give to his children. And we have every reason to rejoice over that. So how are you going to live your life? Based on all this wisdom and all this understanding that we get revealed to us in God's word. Are you going to invest in God and invest in relationships with other people? Are you going to invest your time in the spiritual ministry that God has given you the responsibility and the ability to accomplish? And are you going to invest in rejoicing and living your life excited about all the things that God has done for you? I hope that you will, and I hope that I can as well, because sometimes that's not so easy, right? We get distracted from these investments that we need to make, and we start thinking that other things are more important. But ultimately, we know that this is where we'll find value in this short life that we have to live. Hopefully, one day, whenever this life comes close to an end and the dark days are upon us, we can look back and we can see all that we've had and all that we've enjoyed and all that God has done for us. And we can look forward to the day ahead when the light will be revealed again and we will get to live forever with God when this life is over. I hope that you're excited about that as I'm excited about that. I hope you're excited about those who've gone on before us who are also enjoying the blessings of being in the Lord, even this very day. And I hope that if you're not enjoying that, that you will be encouraged by this lesson to start considering how you can make your life right with God. And if there's anything that we can do, will you please come as we stand and as we sing?